All right. All right, so this is going to be a really easy way to beat King Protein Shake. Pretty much, I'm aiming this at anybody. At any point, this team will work. If you're on NA, JP, if you're joining JP really late, so you've missed welfares, those kinds of things. Because this boss fight is unique now in that you could play the JP server way down the line and still be able to fight this boss. It's not limited anymore. Anybody can fight this with rare prisms now. You can get the Grail and all that. Okay, so normally when I do this fight, I do double David. That works really well. But a lot of people don't have access to double David because they don't have a friend that will slot David for them. So I'm going to go with Merlin just because everybody has a Merlin on their friends list. Or they have Merlin themselves. Although Merlin is really OP generally, I actually do think David is better for this boss fight. Just because he's not being counterclassed by the boss, and his NP does damage, so he helps win at the end. But we'll get into that in a second. But Merlin can definitely work. He's not quite as good, but he's fine. There are some advantages to him. Okay, so the main thing with Kingprotea is she has 2 million health, and then every turn she gains 500,000 health. Which might seem almost impossible to beat as a free-to-play. But after 22 turns, she'll lose all those health stacks, go back to 2 million. She'll give herself a defense down so you can do more damage to her. And then the idea is to basically kill her right there. So you buff up a unit, switch them to the back, stall for 22 turns. Your switch Mystic Code's off cooldown now, so you switch the unit back, and then you buff again, and you blow her up. If you fail to kill her on that 22nd turn, though, she'll get all of her health back. She goes like to 10 million or something. And then you'll have to wait 5 turns for her to lose the extra health again. But she'll give herself an even larger defense down, so it's a viable option to stall that extra 5 turns to get the bigger defense down if you're maybe struggling on damage, but you have really good stall. But we're going to go for the 22 turn kill. You can also kill her on turn 1 if you're an Omega Whale, but that's not very applicable to most people, so... Alright, so the most important thing is going to be your damage dealer. Thankfully, there's a million units that can do this. The most practical is going to be a Berserker because they do bonus damage to alter egos, but there are a lot of neutral class units that can do the job, especially if you have a powerful CE like Heaven's Feel, Limit Broken, or a Black Grail, Limit Broken or not. But we're going to do it without those. We're going to try to use a more reasonable CE, that something is in the power range that most people have. Your options are going to vary kind of depending on what you have. I think the most useful Berserker for this that everyone's going to have generally is Summer Jolter, or Jolter Berserker, Jerker if you will, because her event is right before this boss is added. So basically everyone will have her. However, some people will play the JP server and NA way down the line after those events, and they'll be doing the interlude version of this boss fight, and they won't have her. So she is super good for this, but we're not going to use her. But she's good because she hits harder than Lu Bu, who we're going to use. She has an NP battery skill, so she gets set up faster, and she has a survival skill at the beginning, just like if you're wanting to charge up her NP and stuff. Where Lu Bu has none of those things. So she's a really, really good pick that basically everyone will have, and she makes it a lot easier. But we're going to do Lu Bu, who's a lot harder to use here, but we can make it work even with the nonsense that we're going to be using. So CE, if you have something like Black Grail or Heaven's Feel or whatever, that's going to help a lot. Especially if you're using something like Berserker Kentoki, who has a battery skill, so he doesn't need starting NP to get going. Because you don't want to wait a long time to get your NP. So it'd be harder on someone like Lu Bu to use Heaven's Feel or Black Grail, but there's a lot of other units that'd be alright. Also, if you have stronger supports like Waver that you could use to offset the lack of starting NP, you could do it with almost any unit. But I'm going to go with this Arjuna Valentine's Day CE, because anybody can get this with a few rare prisms. And there's a lot of other CEs that do comparable damage to it. It does anti-damage to Divinity, but a lot of other CEs can, like I said, give comparable damage. And you don't need to limit break this thing. It takes a lot of rare prisms to limit break this thing, but you really only need 1 copy. 1 copy will generally get the job done. So we're going to go with that. Okay, so the stall part of the setup is mostly going to be David, Mash, and Merlin. We'll get these in here. Mash is the one you're going to switch out with Lu Bu, so she needs to be in the back. I don't know why I'm scrolling down for Mash. And then, so the big thing what we're going to do is, We want our front row, except for Lu Bu, to all die to the NP. That way I can just bring in the back row cleanly. But then we need our front row to help Lu Bu get his NP or give him buffs, those kinds of things. And again, we're just doing budget options. Leonidas is a really good pick. You don't have to bring him. It adds a lot of RNG. You could use Hans, but it adds a lot more RNG. The taunt makes things a lot smoother. Hans makes it easier to get NP gain, though, dramatically. So if you're using a unit and you don't have any starting NP, you might want to change that. But Leonidas works well, especially because he's got the Buster up, so he's still helping Lu Bu do damage later on. Okay, CE-wise, Leonidas, you just want starting NP. Ideally, you'd want to do something like Demonic, just because you get the better NP off of it, but a lot of people won't have that. So I'm just going to go with like Imaginary Element. It's a pretty whatever starting in PCE. But as long often you're going to need a taunt and then do your NP, so it's good to just have starting NP, so it's easy to do that. Doesn't really matter what's on Shakespeare. Your ultimate is going to live die. It just doesn't really matter. Especially if you have a stronger DPS, you're not going to need really anything. I'm going to go with Ox King because it's just a little bit more damage in the long run. It probably won't matter. I mean, again, especially if you're using Jerker, you're not going to need it. That's pretty flexible. And these supports, like I said, can be traded out with a lot of stuff. If you have the Poster Girl CE, which gives taunt to a unit, you could make Leonidas a buffer, so they're buffing and taunting for you. This thing right here. So there's just a lot of options. So the back row is going to do nothing but stall. They just need to live for a really long time. I like defense up CEs because we're going to be spamming a lot of defense up through people's abilities, and it stacks, and that's just it's a really easy way to live for a long time. If you don't have a defense up CE, we're just going to use the 4-star one. This is very, very common. But if you don't have this one, you can use the 3-star variant. And if you don't have any kind of defense up, you could use something like a Gut CE, the Caneth CE, something like that. Anything to just help mitigate damage or generate NP for Mash or Merlin. Because if they're NPing more often, that's more survivability as well. But I'm just going to go with the defense up because it's really standard, really easy to. It's easy to have some kind of defense up CE. There's a lot of them. I'm actually going to switch these around because David is so tanky here because of his first skill, and the boss doesn't do bonus damage. So Merlin is the weak link of this team. It's funny to say that. This is a very rare instance where it kind of goes down that way. But it's because he is being counterclassed by the boss. So you kind of have to babysit him. And a lot of times you might not have that defense up CE on him because your friend might just have like a bond up or something. But you can definitely carry him to turn 22. But he's definitely the hardest part, and we'll kind of explain how to keep him alive, or how to maximize the odds of keeping him alive as we go through this. You want the Switch Mystic Code, which also anybody can get for free. You don't even need rare prisms, but that is definitely the best one. All right, time to fight. All right, so our objective right now is make sure nobody dies before her NP, because we don't want the back row coming in early. That's why Leonidas is here. This is possible without a taunt, but it definitely helps. The other thing is we need to get Lu Bu up to 80% NP charge. So when he joins the team later, if Merlin's got his first skill, he'll get up to 100%. But the more NP gain you get on your DPS, the better. But we really just need to get 80%. Thanks to Shakespeare, we're already at 70. So we're pretty much set. And we have at least 3 turns of survival, so there's no problem. I'm going to use stun right away because this fight goes on for a long time and stun will come off cooldown. And later on, maybe if Merlin's exposed, you could use the stun. But we don't use it right away. Lu Bu can't die. Gets the stun and cooldown, so it's coming back sooner. Just buys us a turn to get set up. And yeah, damage is completely irrelevant. All we care about is NP gain. We've got our 80%, we're good to go. So I can switch him to the back right now if I want to. Or I can wait. I'm going to wait because I'm going to try to see if I can get like his quick card. So when I switch with Mash, Mash will get her quick card. And we're going to taunt, so it's not like Lu Bu can die here. I'm going to go for NP gain on Leonidas now because Lu Bu already has enough. And I want to make sure Leonidas gets his NP so he can keep the taunt up. So her debuffs is not random, it's set. You go over a certain amount of turns with each debuff. It goes heal down, defense down, then NP gain down. The defense down one, which you'll do next on turn 7, that is the scariest one and is pretty much the fight. It makes your units a lot more vulnerable. If you can get through that part, you're pretty much set. After the defense down is gone, your units are so tanky, if you're using like Mash and Merlin David or whatever, or Double David, that you're good. So you want to make sure you don't use Mash's NP generally until turn 7 hits, because you want to make sure you're nice and tanky to get through those turns. Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and switch now because we want to get some NP gain on Mash while we can. We could wait a turn if we wanted to, though, because Leonidas has taunt. Actually, I guess we'll wait just in case. Maybe Lu Bu gets his R card. No, we'll go ahead and switch. I'll take the quick card. That's better than nothing. So we want to buff up Lu Bu now, because he's going to keep these buffs, because the duration won't be lost while he's in the back. I'm not going to use his NP up, though, because I can just cast that later when he comes back, and I don't want to give the defense down to his teammates right now. You want to give him the Mysticode attack up, because even though it only lasts 1 turn, again, when he comes back, he'll still have it, and then you can apply it again, because we have to go to turn 22, so it'll be back. We switch him out with Mash. Just make sure I'm not forgetting anything. Okay, I think we're good. Now, the idea is for Leonidas and Shakespeare to die on the NP turn, but we want Mash to live, so we'll use her invulnerability on herself. We want to get as much NP gain as Mash as possible, because we're going to want to have her NP by turn 7, so that's why I'm doing that. And it doesn't really matter if she procs Leonidas' guts here, it wouldn't really, we don't care. Alright, now I'm going to use Mash's 3rd skill because... Actually, no, I'm not. Normally I would. If Leonidas had popped guts, I would use it because I want the NP gain. I want to get her NP really fast. But actually, I don't want her to NP Leonidas' guts go off and then have her attack Mash. I want her to attack Leonidas and have him die. So yeah, normally, if Leonidas had lost his guts there, I would taunt just for the NP gain on Mash so she get her NP right away. But I'm just going to do the invulnerability so she survives the NP and we'll let everyone else die here. That is kind of unfortunate. Because the sooner you use her 3rd skill, the sooner it comes back, and this is all about the long run. It's all about the long-term value. Because right there, if we had had Mash's taunt, she might have attacked Mash instead, and we wouldn't want that. Okay, so from now on, we're going to start rotating David's 2nd skill and Merlin's 2nd skill to block the NPs. But on the first turn, you can use one of their skills, because the next NP is not going to be for a while, and then whoever used their 2nd skill won't have to use it until the one after. But after this turn, you never want to do this again. Like, I'm going to use Merlin's 2nd skill right now. I'm never doing that again unless the boss has their NP. This is the only time you want to do that. Alright, we really want Mash NP gain. It's super unlucky that we have not had any way to use her 3rd skill yet. That's kind of bad. I'm actually going to use Merlin's 1st skill right now. So you got to keep this in mind. You want to use Merlin's 3rd skill on himself to get the higher health, because Merlin's the one you're babysitting. But you want to make sure when you're using it that you have enough time off the cooldown. By turn 22, you can give it to Lu Bu. So don't just like throw it out willy-nilly, keep track of the turn counter, but early on we can throw it out. There's no point in using it now though, because we have invulnerability, we're not going to take any damage. Unfortunately, we have no way to get any NP gain on Mash. Hopefully we'll get that next turn. Because turn 7's coming up. We don't have much defense going into this, so we're going to use Mash's 1st skill and Merlin's 3rd skill. We want to make sure Merlin does not die, because we have a little gap here where we don't have too much protection for him. Using his 3rd skill actually can really save his ass. Now, I could taunt on Mash, but she's going to get her NP anyway now, so I kind of don't want to do that. It is a way of protecting Merlin though, but I think I'm going to not use it. This is a little bit risky. But we do have crit down on the boss from Merlin, so should be alright. Okay, I got less NP gain there than I was thinking. So I probably should use my 3rd skill, because now we don't have Mash's we don't have Mash's NP for turn 7, that was a huge mistake on my part. That's really bad. We still have the damage cut on Merlin though, that helps, and we use David's first skill, so he's all right. That's pretty bad. The main thing is I've also gone so many turns have gone by that Mash's third skill could almost be back by now if I could have used it earlier. So the value here is a mess. Hopefully this won't cost us the game, but yeah, it's something you kind of want to avoid. All right, there's the defense down. This is where shit really hits the fan. Damage cut kind of bails out there. We don't have it anymore. Thankfully, we got the NP now, so we get another damage cut. I almost want to not use Mash's NP because we're using David's evade now. Boss has its NP, but I think we do it anyway and start building up towards the next one. This will rarely matter, but you can sometimes use David's NP to overcharge Mash's to get a little bit more defense up. But you do want to make sure you have David's NP by turn 22 because he'll do a good 400k damage or so. 300 to 400k, and that helps. So you want to make sure he at least has it. But pretty easily you can use his NP, and there's enough time that you can get it back again. But once you're like on turn 15 or something, you don't want to use his NP anymore. So you want to make sure you have it. Okay, we got a Buster crit there. That's pretty rough, but we can still come back from that. That is not ideal. So definitely time to do Merlin's NP, and then we get Mash the Archchain. There's definitely a world where this goes south. There's a few turns that if you like double Buster crit, you're in bad shape. But it's only on the turns where you have the defense down. Once you get, I think it's turn like 12 or 17 or something, I don't remember exactly, but that's when the defense down is gone. And then the fight becomes much easier. So you just have to get through those turns. David is definitely the tankiest person here. Alright, we're definitely going to use Merlin's first skill there, get Mash's NP again. That's a big help. If Mash had an art card, I'd actually use her third skill. This is a big part of why this actually isn't going quite as smoothly as normal, is because we haven't been able to use Mash's third skill at all, and that's really catching up with us here. But I think we can still stabilize. But pretty much this is the strategy. You just do this until turn 22, and then you switch Lubu back in. You drop the Merlin buffs on Lubu, use the Mystic Code again, David NPs, Lubu NPs, and that's that. But I'm still gonna show everything and just kind of show how to get through all this stuff and like the decisions I'm making and why. I'm trying to help people make it past the defense down phase, because that really is when it's hard. So this is a turn I really want to taunt because we've got invulnerability, we'll take no damage, but again, every time we've had a good time to taunt, we don't have any art cards, so this is pretty unfortunate. I'm gonna have to do it anyway, though. This is quite bad. We'll get that mad NP gain from our Buster cards. But not using it for this long is pretty rough. I mean, it's really limiting how much we're going to use it in the fight. You can use it like 3 times or so. Alright, NP time, so just use Merlin's second skill. No point in using Mash's first skill yet. We're going to be able to use Merlin's health up one more time, most likely. So if we have a turn where Merlin's a bit exposed, that's when we use it. There is a world where you sometimes give it to Mash, if Mash has just had a horrible series of turns. Maybe gets attacked like 6 times in a row or something ridiculous like that. Or just double crit, then you might want to give it to her. But generally you're going to give it to Merlin just because he's a caster. Okay, I think this is a good time to do it because we're only well, we could use Mash's NP and her first skill, but that's kind of overkill. I think what we're going to do is we're going to do Merlin's third skill on himself. That way it's definitely back in time for Lubu, and then we're going to do Mash's NP, and if there's some time after that, we'll do our first skill. Stun is about to come back, I really do recommend you use the stun during the defense down phase. A lot of times you haven't quite run out of gas yet, or you maybe just coincidentally haven't had a bad turn yet. But it's still really good to try to get value out of it during the defense down phase, because that's when it matters. That's when buying a whole turn for yourself is big, because once the defense down is gone, this is pretty easy. You might still have a bad turn later on, where you might need it, because you do get that NP gain down, so your mash NPs are going to slow down and that kind of thing. But you got to really front load and deal with this defense down, and then after that, it's pretty much smooth sailing. You're really happy to see her attack David. David is just so tanky here because he's not being counterclassed, and he's got that first skill, and he still benefits from all the defense from the other people. So you really want her to hit David as much as possible. That's good for you. So I might wait a turn to do Mash's first skill. I'm thinking we just do Merlin's NP. Someone might get decked in the schnoz, but we can kind of recover from that with her first skill, so I think we still wait. I haven't had any use of David's NP. At this point, we're probably just going to hold on to it until Lubu shows up. We just haven't really had a time to use it with Mash. It's not that big of a deal. It only gives her a 5% defense boost. I will say, if you're using Lubu specifically, oh, and there goes the defense down, so this is much easier now. But if you're using Lubu specifically, that does kind of incentivize you to want to use Merlin instead of a double David. But if you're using a stronger DPS, or you have a stronger CE than the one we're using, if you find a way to work in Black Grail or Heaven's Feel or something, then you don't need Merlin as much. And if you do have a friend that can slot David, it's a bit easier with David. But I think it's easy enough with Merlin. Now that I've done this a few times with him, it's not too hard to keep him alive. We've actually got quite a bit of overkill value here. We still got Mash's first skill. We still got the stun. I actually kind of wanted to stun here. I mean, I could almost just let the turn go and not do anything. I kind of want to hold off on my first skill just because I don't really need it. Merlin still has the bonus health. He's still got the damage cut, defense up. We don't have the defense down anymore. I think we just wait and do nothing. Or we might not even use our stun. It just might not happen. We'll see. That's kind of risky. I think if you want to be really safe, I should have either stunned or done Mash's first skill there, because Merlin is still somewhat exposed. The defense down's gone, so he's pretty good, but she could double Buster Crit. It's very unlikely, but it would make me a lot safer if I had used Mash's first skill. Okay, I'm going to do David's Evade, but then I'm going to stun, and that way she can't NP, but David's Evade, unlike Merlin's Vulnerability, it lingers, and she can't hit us. So this is kind of just a free turn. We don't have a very good hand anyway, so this works out. Okay, now it's NP time, but she's still gonna do normal cards. So I'm gonna use Mash's NP here. Kind of funny how long we've gone with. Actually, I might use both and use her third skill. And that way I could get another NP. That might be overkill. We don't have the defense down anymore. I don't think Mash needs the first skill to tank this, because the first hit's going to be evaded, which is the NP, and that's only 2 hits at most. Without the defense down anymore, I don't think we necessarily need it. I just don't know when I would even use it. If I double NP, I'll just do the first skill then, because I'm never going to need it at this point. There's not that many turns left to go. And we're going to get our NP again pretty soon. Most likely before the first skill is gone. So there's nowhere I'm going to use it where it's going to be all that helpful anymore. Like I said, if you get past that defense down phase, you have so much extra value, it doesn't even matter anymore. You really got to min-max during that defense down phase, but other than that, it's a cakewalk. Even Merlin, if he gets crit at this point, isn't really going to take any damage. Okay, we could actually NP with Mash right now, but we'd have to use Merlin's first skill. Don't really want to do that, so I think we just Merlin NP, and then we'll get Mash's NP next turn, most likely.
小さな窓がここには一つ。
はい。
お望みのままに。そこは壁もなく城もなく国制度の始まりの空。魂のありかを見せようか。ガーデン・オブ・アバロン。そうです。どうぞ。柄ではないんだけどね。
Now, Merlin is super tanky right now. He's got loads of damage cut and defense up, so I'm not, I mean, look at that, it's nothing. I'm not even remotely worried. But because we're so close to being done, I might have Mash NP right now. Yeah, I might as well. I'm kind of wasting the invulnerability. A lot of times, if things are going poorly for Merlin, you'll actually give him the invulnerability. If he, like, on one of those turns where you don't have too much damage cut, and he gotten crit or busted or something, a lot of times you might want to just throw the invulnerability on him at that point, just to make sure that turn he's safe. That just hasn't gone down that way this run, though. And at this point, we're so stable, there's nothing can go wrong. I don't think there's any chance to lose here. We're gonna have to deal with one more NP from her, but we got Merlin's second skill, so no problem. Look at that, she's bustering and it just doesn't do anything. Not a big deal. But looking at it now, I probably should have just never done Mash's first skill. Looking at it now, I probably should not have done Mash's first skill when I did a few turns ago, and I probably could use it next turn, like this turn coming up. I've probably been in a good time for it. Thankfully, we got Merlin's NP to get that health back. Yeah, at this point, I don't think we even need Merlin's NP. I'm just doing it to be safe. I lost my chain of thought for a minute there. The one good thing about using Merlin instead of David is the fact that he keeps Mash's health up, where your healing is a bit limited with Double David. You do get the healing from both the harps, and then you guys maybe some miscellaneous command codes, which I'm using some random command codes for a bit of healing. And generally Mash just won't run out of life. But that's the one issue if you do Double David, is you do have to keep an eye on Mash. I find the command codes get the job done. Alright, here we go. It's time to blow her up. So our Switch Mystic Code's obviously back. It's been a long time. I will say I made a slight mistake and I actually just forgot about this. It's really nice if you can use Mash's NP really close to the DPS turn, because it gives David the attack up. And David actually does enough damage to matter here. Hopefully that won't cost me the game. We'll see. That is a mistake. It won't affect Lupu, obviously, but David doing a bit more damage is definitely a good thing. This is definitely where using something like Jerker or just a stronger Berserker would help, because you're not going to be pushing it on damage at all. And so you have wiggle room for mistakes like that. Now, we're pretty safe because Lubu got a Buster card. So Lubu's Buster card is just going to do extreme damage here, and that should make, if we get a low roll on his NP, we don't do as much damage as normal or something, we should still be safe. But if we didn't get a Lubu Buster card, and I forgot to use Mash's NP properly there, it could be a problem. I'm not entirely sure how much damage we're going to do with Lubu here, but we should be fine. When you're dealing with this many buffs and you have this much damage, the low high roll system can be very significant. It can wreck your damage by quite a lot. We're talking hundreds of K. So you're kind of at the mercy of RNG. You can always reset the app and cast a random skill. Alright, well she's dead. But yeah, you can always, if you happen to low roll and you don't mind save scumming, you could always close the app, reopen the app, cast a random skill, and try your luck again. We were pretty safe there though, even if we had done less damage and she had lived. We had that Buster card, and that would have done a very sizable amount of damage, even if it didn't crit, and that definitely would have saved us from any low high roll nonsense. But yeah, there you go. That's King Potato Chips. That team structure works with a lot of units. You can do that with a lot of different supports, a lot of different DPS. It's mainly just about the principle. So hopefully this helps some people. I'm out.